So I'm calling upon that supernatural reality today. That's when a lot of times it's kind of an older saying. People say, I'm standing on the promises of God. You guys, the seasoned saints probably know the hymn and so forth. It's the idea that there's certain things that God has guaranteed in his word. Suffering, not the one we want, he's guaranteed it because we live in a broken world. Comfort, he's guaranteed it. Life, he's guaranteed it. Everything you need, he's guaranteed it. He has not guaranteed everything we want. So when we suffer fear, the concern that we're experiencing, it can be concern about emotional pain, isolation, rejection, right? It can be in the same vein of not feeling validated, not feeling like I have a place in this world. Those are all things that we can fear occurring. But when we allow God to work in those places, when we instead invite him into those places where we feel isolated, where we feel rejected, where we feel those things, that's where we truly find him for who he is. It's being in those places and being in those sufferings where we find that supernatural reality takes place. I'm not saying we should seek it out. I'm saying when it happens, we push into it, we embrace it. We're thankful for our sufferings, Romans tells us. And that's how we do it, because we know he's working. He's going to go on from there. And it says there, verse 27, I read this, but I'm going to read it again. Immediately he said to them, take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. The phrase take courage, the King James is actually my favorite translation. It's just an opinion. It's be of good cheer. It's what he says to Thomas. And it's what he says to the disciples when they're holed up in the upper room and they're scared for their lives. And he appears before them and he says, take courage or be of good cheer. And the interesting thing is, it's always, I shouldn't say always, it's usually accompanied with, it is I. Because really the only remedy for fear is the understanding of who Jesus is. The only remedy for depression and anxiety and these things. I'm not talking about clinical. I'm not making commentary on medicines. I'm saying that when you and I are willingly wallowing in our own depravity, in our own depression, when we're willingly embracing it. And I think most of us probably know the difference. It's one thing to mourn. It's another thing to have a mourn party where I refuse when I have anxiety and I refuse the promises of God in my life. When someone comes along and says, it'll be okay, and we go, no! Right? And we think it's cute because we use sarcasm. But it's not cute. It's destructive. And there are times in our lives where we just have to call a spade, and we got to repent. And we got to say, that's sin. And the promises of God are contrary to that fear. They're contrary to that anxiety. They're contrary to that depression. I may feel a million different ways, but the reality is that Christ is on my side, that Christ is working, that he ever lives to make intercession for me, that he wants to fill me with his Holy Spirit, that he wants to bring me alongside other believers that are broken just like me, that he wants to elevate us to bring him to himself and do this incredible work in the world that we live in today. That's the reality that we live in. That's the reality that he has for us. And even when we're tired, we feel served out, we feel like we deserve something we didn't get, all the different ways that these guys felt, none of us have a right to be hard-hearted. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that because Christ is merciful to the hard-hearted, isn't he? He's kind to them. He doesn't just hang them out to dry for being hard-hearted. He doesn't hang them out to dry for ignoring him. But anyway, so he says, just by definition, according to the Nelson's Bible Dictionary, courage is the strength of purpose that enables one to withstand fear. So courage is not the absence of fear. That's really important. It's an understanding fear for what it is, that it's self-preservation, and sometimes that's good, right? If you have a fear of touching hot things, that's a good fear, right? Nobody's going to say that's wrong. But whenever we come into a place where we have this fear or we've entered a reality, we say, God let me down. It's a lie. God's never let anyone down. It's never happened. God's always provided everything we've needed. He has not provided everything we wanted. He's always taken care of us, right? He's always encouraged us. He's always there for us. These are the truths that we have to walk in. These are the truths that we don't negotiate. They're the truths that we don't, when we're down and out, we don't want to just say, it doesn't matter. I can say whatever I want, or I can act however I want. You can. Absolutely, you can do that. But do not do that and expect that somehow you'll find comfort in that. Most of us are old enough to know that tantrums don't bring comfort, right? They just bring more emotional turmoil and guilt and shame, and they drive people from us. It's time for us, myself, this is for me. Honestly, That's not just like some pastor thing, like I'm going to lay a bunch of stuff out there and be like, oh, it's for me. It is for me. Because I'm a crybaby and I love myself. And the reality is that God's got such great things for us that to dwell upon what the flesh wants or what the flesh thinks is deserved, it's a dirty joke. It's a dirty exchange. It's garbage. And so here's Jesus, and he's encouraging him. He says, you don't have to be afraid. You can take courage. You can actively, in your mind, say, yes, there is fear. These are reasonable fears, right? It's reasonable to be in a boat that's getting destroyed by waves and go, this is bad, right? This is not a good situation. It's a reasonable fear. But even if they go down with the boat, it's okay, right? Because we're not living for this life. We're living for eternity. So the things that occur in this life, those are the Lord's, right? He decides those things, or at least allows them. I don't know where allowance and decision, one starts and the other ends, but he allows things, and it's the way it is. So he moves on from there. He says, hey, take courage. Consider some things. What is the reality of our purpose? What is the reality of God's purpose? What are his promises? What has he said? Consider those things. Take courage. Take it to yourself. Bring it to yourself, literally. It is I. Don't be afraid. Then Peter, you love him. Verse 28. Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. Come, he said. So, I've heard, and I'm sure you have too, and read a lot of things. Oh, this is what Peter was thinking. We don't know what Peter was thinking. All right, so let's just tuck that away. We don't know if he was being presumptuous. We don't know if he was just like, dude, that's awesome. I've been on a boat my whole life. I would like to walk on the water. We have no idea why he does it. Maybe he just wants confirmation that it's not actually a ghost. But who knows why he does it? But he says, if it's you, then tell me to come out on the water too. So again, here's like the third layer of the will of God, right? They went mission trip. They went feed the people. They went boat trip. He's obeyed the whole way. And now walk on the water, Peter. Yes, come to me, Jesus said. So we can all probably agree, like, Peter is in the will of God, right? He's not like walking in some wild rebellion here. He's doing everything that God has told him to do on the outside. And so he says there, then Peter got down out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. It's a small detail, but I would love to know how far Jesus was away. He's far enough away that they think he's a ghost, right? And yet he's also far enough away that Peter he leaves the boat and begins to walk to him. How far did Peter walk? Did he walk 10 feet? Did he walk 2 feet? Did he walk 50 meters? He walks towards Jesus. I've also wondered if Jesus is walking that whole way on the water, because did he teleport part way? And I don't think he did. I think he did legitimately walk. This is just inference at this point. But I've wondered, did the waves open up so he had flat ground, or was he just whoa, walking as he went? What was Peter in that thing? What was he doing? How did this all work out? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know how it worked out. But Peter gets out of the boat and walks to him, right? And what he sees, it says, but when he saw the wind, he was afraid. Again, fear sets in. What did Peter see that made him afraid? Earthly reality. That's what it was. Everything pointed to him doing exactly what he was supposed to do. He had fed the people. He had ministered to the people. He had obeyed Jesus. He got in the boat. He had rowed for 9 hours straight. He had done all of that. He had gotten out into the water at Jesus' command. And yet there was a physical reality that he was so used to in his life that he succumbed to it. And I think that happens to us all the time. We say things like, it always happens this way. Or we say things like, it's always been like this. Peter, he's a fisherman. He grew up around fishing and boats. He knows what happens when things that aren't buoyant go into the water, right? They sink. Peter was known by the church fathers. Whenever you read about church history, it's extra biblical, so I guess be careful with that. But when you read about descriptions of the apostles from the church fathers, the guys that they discipled and the guys after them that were discipled, they call Peter the giant. He was a huge dude. He's literally, they describe him as like this big, burly dude. And he's walking on the water, and he sees something, a reality that he's always been accustomed to, sinking. That everything goes in the water, sinks. So I can't really blame him, right? We get overwhelmed by our perceived realities. But our perceived realities often come out this way. We say, If that were to happen, I could not survive that. If that were to happen, I don't know how I would make it. If that were to happen. And so when we're walking on the water in the middle of the will of God, and what does that mean for us? When we're just walking in obedience, yeah, we got issues. He's hard-hearted at this point. He's gained nothing from the miracle of the loaves at this point. He doesn't understand everything that's going on. Shoot, at this point, they don't even believe that Jesus will die and be raised from the dead. Right? They have it's not, because when you get to chapter 17 on the Mount of Transfiguration, they're coming back down the mountain, and Jesus is like, hey, I'm going to die, and then I'll be raised from the dead. And it says they had no idea what it meant to be resurrected from the dead. They don't understand what Jesus is here to do. They don't understand how he's going to accomplish his kingdom. There's so much about him, they have no idea. And it's a lot like us. You know, we know some things, and we want to count on those things, but we don't know everything. And we know things in this world, it always works out that way. Things always sink. And so we fall into this mode, even in the middle of this miraculous life that God has for us, and we go, I'm going to sink. It's what's going to happen. It's just what always happens. And that's what Peter does. And so he sinks. He begins to sink. And I don't know, I've jumped in the water many times, and I would consider myself on the bigger side. And I've never just like sunk in slowly. So I don't know if it was like sinking in proportion to faith. It was like hourglass, or if it just was like shunk. I don't know how it went. But what I do know is as soon as he realizes he begins to sink, he says, Lord, save me. Which is faith. It's our own duality, isn't it? Where we say, I'm in the middle of the will of God, I'm doing what I believe God's called me to do, but I'm sinking now because I also live in this reality that I attribute can overcome God's power in my life, right? That's what I mean. We say this is how it always works out. What we're saying is God has said this about what he can do in my life, but I deny that, not in word, but oftentimes in practice. So I begin to sink and I don't partake of what God has for me, but at the same time I have a little bit of faith and I just cry out, Lord, save me. I'm ruining your dynamic in the middle of your will, in the middle of your promises. And he says, well, when you have enough faith, Pete, and you've taken a dunk, I'll help you out. Why don't you swim back to the boat? Hope you don't drown. He helped him. He helped. This is good news for us. That when we doubt God in the middle of everything, he helps us.